Good morning and happy Monday, said no one ever. I can't stand Mondays. It doesn't matter. It could be 85 degrees and not a cloud in the sky, and I'd be like, can we start over? Can we just start over? Well, I hope you guys had a great weekend. I know I did. It was super busy. Weather cooperated everywhere except for in Mississippi. Check out the backup channel because I have a lot going on over on that channel about Mississippi because it is horrible. Horrible. God. Wist. Wist that it's 23 degrees in Idaho. Damn. Damn. Goodness. So I hope everyone's doing good. I was in here chatting earlier. So if I missed you, I'm sorry. I see Rowena's in chat. Rowena's been sick. She's back, thank goodness. Jules is back. You know, Jules has to wear a helmet everywhere she goes now. She hit her head the other day. So we're glad we want everybody in one piece for all of this because we got a lot of stuff going on. Oh, we had a great members live on Saturday. If you missed it, go check it out. It's posted on the members tab. We had a members giveaway yesterday. Took me a minute to figure out who won. At first, I thought it was Bama Cat. And then I realized Mama B answered before Bama Cat. So her wonderful prize will be mailed out today. Other than that, wow, spring is in the air. For some of us, it's in our eyes, ears, and throat, but that's how it goes. JC said, hi from Denmark. It's snowing here today. Hello, Kiki, and hello, Kiki's eyes. We have two Kikis, one with eyes and one without. Hello, Lauren. Lauren's looking at deer. All right. We're all over it. Now, last week, I don't know how this slipped by me. We did not talk about the Idaho 4 at all. We had a bunch of stuff going on, obviously. And of course, we're still covering the case. When I say Idaho 4, I mean Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison. There are some very peculiar and crazy things going on in this case, as if this case can't be any crazier. You have 4 college students, a guy that, as far as we know, doesn't know them. Odds are he had an obsession with one of them. I'm leaning towards Madison. Quadruple murder in a short amount of time. Very short amount of time. Now, with every case that we cover on here, we talk about the timeline, the timeline, the timeline, the timeline. There's a lot of cases where we're like, they wouldn't have had time to do that. Bushy says, hold my beer. Because it seems that he did make time for a quadruple homicide. And for the most part, stayed under the radar. Now, the police were onto him very early on, but of course, they don't tell us those things now, do they? I think this case proves that it's with good reason that they don't tell the public. Could you just imagine? We were talking at the members live on Saturday about people that say, you know, if they were more transparent, there wouldn't be so many rumors. Oh, hell no, it would be worse. You give somebody a little tiny bit of chocolate, they want the whole candy bar. At least I know I do. So could you imagine if in early December, they decided to be transparent with us and they said, look, I know you guys are looking at a Jake and a Jack and Jeremy wants his DNA taken. The vape guy's creepy looking. There was a guy acting weird at the food truck. I got it. But you guys, we're looking at a PhD student, but we're not going to tell you what university, but he didn't go to Idaho. That's called transparency. Guess what would have happened? Epic, epic, epic crash is what would have happened because the internet would have broke. people would have come unglued. Like I'm coming unglued right now because look at this. Big T just left me a super sticker. Thank you, Big T. That means the world to me that you would support the channel like that. Thank you very much, Big T. I do appreciate it. Could you imagine if the authorities start being transparent with the public? Now, I don't mean with us because, well, we we have a marble in our skull. It rolls around, it bounces around sometimes, but we don't get all crazy. We don't get crazy. Some of these people do. You give them just a little bit of information and they go crazy with it. Time, they don't consider time. They don't consider what the police are doing. They always look at what they're not doing. Well, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? When are they just going to sit everybody in the town down and take their DNA and interrogate them? Gets real freaking old. Jim22 is a new YouTube member. Thank you, Jim22. Let's get to the comments and we're going to dig right into, we're going to do a deep dive, everyone. You know how we do our deep dives around here. And we're going to start talking about this demolition because it makes not a lick of sense. None. None at all. So let's get to the comments and then we're going to get to it. Rowena, after the last show, left a comment on the replay. She said, just a thought. Do you think Bushy will let the attorneys get through the pretrial hearings and everything, she said everything in caps involved, then fire them and represent himself for trial? He has the right, and I think he may be that narcissistically stupid. I personally would not be surprised. I'm actually shocked as we sit here right now that his camaraderie with his public defender has gone as smooth as it has. He considers himself to be of a higher caliber of intelligence. There is another case that's getting ready to go to trial in a few days. Letitia Stouch. She fired her attorneys. She didn't like the way things were going. Now, on one hand, she says she's not mentally, capable of understanding her crime, and she should be given some leniency for that. But then on the other hand, she says she's smarter than the people that were assigned to her, the ones that went to law school, they studied the law, they took the bar exam, they have offices, they go to court, they argue the law. So she thought that she was smarter than them. Well, it didn't take long to bite her. Bushy might be a little different story, though. Do you guys think at some point when things aren't going his way that he will pull the rug out from under his public defender, who, by the way, knows her stuff, and say he wants to represent himself? I don't know. Jamie said, I don't know what Jamie's talking about. True Crime with Shannon said possible. Britt said, I could see it. I could see it too. Rowena said, I really do. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it all hinges on how he feels when he reads the room with the pretrial hearing. I think that's really going to tell us something. Because as we know, the probable cause affidavit is their weakest evidence. Some people will say they have nothing. Well, they've got something because a judge signed an arrest warrant. Tracked his ass down in Pennsylvania. SWAT team broke in his house. Well, I say broke in. They busted through the windows, the doors, the whole 9 yards. Saw him in his Christmas jammies, his reindeer socks, putting his personal trash into individual baggies. So when they get to the pretrial, it's not just going to be what we know already. They're going to have to start layering it on. So he's going to read a room and he's going to figure out he is effed without the good feeling. And he might say, "You're fired. I can do this myself." We'll see. I would not doubt it. Nikki said, "This is insane." Oh, I agree. She said they are seriously accommodating to his vegan lifestyle. It's a want, not a need. I agree. I agree with you, Nikki. She said, "I just got out of jail after being there for a week just for not being able to pay my fines." Which, by the way, I think that is so damn ridiculous they do that. Like you can pay them sitting in jail. I guess some people sit it out or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, she said, "Guess what?" And I say, "What, Nikki?" She says, "I starved. The food was horrible. Nobody asked me what I preferred because that's how it's supposed to be, especially for an alleged murderer." I agree. If it wasn't for the fact that this is a high profile, all eyes on this case, I don't think that would be the case. I really don't. And several people have said, look, he's getting his way now as far as the TV and the vegan meals. If he is found guilty, it's not going to be that way once he's just a regular old garden variety prisoner. Inmates sue the Department of Corrections all the time. All the time. Constitutional rights, um, fair and unusual punishment, all of that stuff. They sue all the time. And one of the big ones is the food. The food. A lot of them will get religion in the pokey just so they have an excuse for better food. Vegan is not a religion. It's not. But, let's just say he decides his religion, when he finds it, is kosher foods. Well, when he is a garden variety prisoner and he's in the slop hall or whatever you call it, and they say, "Today we're having pork and beans." And he says, "Oh, it's against my religion to have pork." They'll say, "Then you can have the beans. You don't have to eat the pork." That's how it goes. So right now they're having to dance the dance with him because everybody is looking that way. And I think they just want to make sure that all I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and when we get years down the road, he can't come back with something silly like that. All right, speaking of his religion, in the last show we talked about him going to the jail chaplain. OJ, get down. Come on. Come on, get back up there and go to sleep. The jail chaplain, or whatever they call it. They said it's a Catholic priest that comes to talk to people at the jail. I don't know. But anyway, we were talking about that. Trace Replaced said, this is directed at me, none of you. I think she, says, "You have a lot of nerve saying he can't get to heaven. All are welcome. The tired, the needy, the broken." Well, I didn't say he can't get to heaven. What I said was, I get really damn tired of these criminals, these heinous ass people getting put in jail, and basically just to give them time out of their cell, they find Jesus. So all is supposed to be forgiven on my end, or Madison's family's end, Ethan's family, Xana, Kaylee, because he's reading the good book now. And also, bring me your tired, needy, and broken. That's Ellis Island. That's not heaven. That's Ellis Island. You're getting your history book confused with the Bible. Totally two different things. So whatever he does with his spirituality, I could care less. Could care less. I just get really damn tired of these people. As soon as they get in, they're reading the Bible. Don Wells, Teardrop, Bushy, Chris Watts, you name it. They always find it. They always do. Ridiculous. So let's get to it. Let's get to the house situation. What is this lot? What is this? How stupid is that? Get so sick of that crap. Law said, "Good Lord," in my best Brooks voice. That's the voice. All right, let's get it to it with the house. Now, if you remember when Bushy took the slowest plane ride in history from Pennsylvania to Idaho, he was assigned a public defender, Ann Taylor, and they had a cleaning crew coming in on a Friday to clean up the house where Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison were brutally murdered. They halted it. They stopped it. Don't clean it. Stop it now. You tell Stanley Steamer to get the hell out of that house. We have to go through there to make sure there's not any evidence left behind. I guess Ann Taylor has slept since then because they're not talking about cleaning it. They're talking about demolishing it. Making it into a koi pond and some benches to reflect. How much sense can this possibly make? I was like, no. We're getting the cart before the horse. Of course, they're going to have the trial. They're going to get through with the trial and then they'll make their plans. It doesn't look that way. We have followed cases on this channel, the Facebook groups, my page, for a little longer than a minute. And one thing that happens in trial a lot of times is the jury will want to see the crime scene. This crime scene in particular, I would think that they would want to see because of the unusual layout of the house. Oh, gee, come on, enough. Goodness. My cat is jumping all over the place. But you would think that the jurors, because of the unusual layout of the house, would want to see the house. They would want to go through it. Now, it can't be their idea, but you would think that Ann Taylor would want them to because it only benefits Bushy. It only benefits him. How would he know his way around? How would he know where Madison's room was? But yet, you have all of these other DNA profiles that you got out of the party house that do know their way around. It only benefits them. But they're in a big damn hurry to tear it down. Why? I don't have the answer. I can't figure it out. So this is a letter. Beigefield talked about it last night. The university wrote a letter to each of the families, smoothing this over. I would think Steve Goncalves would be shitting a brick right now. I would think they all would be. So let's look at this and you guys tell me what you think. As you see, we do have beige on. short sleeves, ruffled.
Exclusive letter that we have now obtained that the University of Idaho sent to the parents of all 4 of the victims of the Idaho student murders at 1122 King Road. And it has to do with the future of that home and what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. It's extremely sad because this is this is just it's still a mysterious tomb. If you think about it, so many of the possessions of the kids are still in the home. And the university wanted to address that with the family as well. Not only the plan for
I think Beigefield could mess up a wet dream. She's talking about the belongings of the victims in the house. That goes without saying. Of course, they want the personal belongings of their loved ones out of there. We're talking about destroying the crime scene. That is different. So either Ann Taylor is sitting there going, hell yeah, tear it down. Tear it down. I don't give a shit. Tear that thing down. And then later in the trial, she would say, well, I could prove it to you, but they tore the house down. I can't believe that she's not raising hell about this.
For the house of demolition and remediation, but also reclaiming what's left. And there is reaction as well from the families, which I'm going to give you in a moment. I just want to read this letter to you, word for word, without any editing. Okay, it begins this way. I am the acting general counsel for the University of Idaho and oversee the legal services for the university. I first want to express my condolences to each of you for the tragic loss that you've suffered. I greatly appreciate the positive manner in which you have interacted with the university in the aftermath of this tragedy. I am writing to communicate to each of you regarding the university's plans for the house at 1122 King Road. As was conveyed to you by Dean of Students, Blake Eccles, the homeowner gifted the house to the university with the intent by both parties that it be demolished. Before doing so, we will complete remediation within the house to address biohazards and chemical hazards that exist as a result of the crimes and ensuing investigation. At the completion of the remediation.
Okay, let's look at this. They're talking about biohazard. Look, they have security all around it. I dare anybody, even Brian Enton, try getting in that house. Just try it. You're going to get arrested faster than Bushy ever thought about being arrested. At the completion of the remediation, we intend to have the remediation team gather any items of personal property that do not appear to be contaminated. They're making it sound like it's a health hazard. There's something behind this. There's something behind this, and the university is making a real power play. They're making it sound like without them, only they let people onto the property. So I'm assuming by now the man that actually owns it has given them ownership. This is all about the university. This is about their image. This is about when kids come through to go to school, they don't want to be freaked out by that house. As we talked about when this first happened in November, the university is going to play a big part in this. There's crime scenes, many, 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 many crime scenes. They don't get torn down. No, they do not. They get cleaned up and they're ready for the next tenant. This is about reputation. This is about an impression. Imagine somebody's going to go to school there. They're all ready and they see the house and they get freaked out and they tell their parents, I don't want to go to Murder U. Now that I think about it, just seeing that house is creeping me out. They certainly want this demolished quickly.
We intend to have the remediation team gather any items of personal property that do not appear to be contaminated and transfer them to university personnel who will take these items to a secure off-site location for representative members of the families to review and recover items of your family members that you wish to keep. Items not selected will then be properly disposed of. This will not apply to large, bulky items such as sofas, beds, or the like, to the extent that any remain on site. If you have specific items you wish to be on the lookout for, regardless of size, please let me know. If we can locate and retain them for you, we will. We intend to proceed with demolition as soon after completion of the remediation as can be done. We do not yet have a specific date for when this will occur. We will notify you of the demolition date in advance so you are not caught by surprise by media reports. In the interim, we are making every effort to respect the dignity of your loved ones, and our activities will be done outside of media scrutiny as much as possible. The house is currently surrounded by construction fencing. The windows and doors have been securely boarded, and we are not allowing access into the house by anyone not specifically authorized by the university.
Okay, right there, that sentence is a big misstep. The police and even Ann Taylor, who is representing Bushy, do not need their permission. It is a crime scene. It is secured. It is not going to get the town sick. And also, they don't leave it in that state of affairs for a jury to look through. Now, I know people have brought up the case of Gannon Stouch. Absolutely. Absolutely. The house that he was murdered in was cleaned up and rented out 2 months later. That poor boy, there was blood through the carpet, through the padding, stained the foundation of the house. It was into the concrete. There are companies that is all they do is crime scene cleanup. So my argument, and this is just my opinion, we can agree to disagree, is that the layout of this house is so peculiar and so unusual. It was said during the case that he may not have been targeting a specific person. It could be the house itself. So if the obsession was possibly the house itself, how do you tear down the house? If the house is what he was drawn to, how do you tear it down? I don't get it. I don't get it. There are crime scenes, sorry to say it, 1,000 times worse than this one. And they can still clean it up. That's their job. That's their business.
Anyone authorized to enter the house will be required to agree to strict non-disclosure and will be prohibited from taking photographs or otherwise recording the inside. This communication constitutes the university's formal notice to you of our intention to proceed with remediation and demolition as described above. If you have any concerns with these plans, please contact me by April 3rd of 2023. We will address those prior to proceeding. If you have retained legal counsel, I encourage you to share this communication, notifying you of the proposed plans. You or your counsel may contact the Office of General Counsel via email, that's redacted, or call me at the phone number listed below, which I've redacted, to discuss any concerns or objections that you may have. Once again, I want to express my deepest sympathy and my condolences to each family member. It is my hope that the university's plan to remove the house helps you in your healing. A reply indicating you have received this email would be greatly appreciated, and the letter is signed by the acting counsel at the University of Idaho. So that had to be processed by the family members. They have to either respond, at least to tell them that they've received this email, and then also if they have any concerns about the plans for remediation and demolition, and then if they have any specific items that they would like to point the university to for retrieval. Thank you.
Erica said the house is coincidental. Social media proves it with messages to Maddie from Brian. I agree. I totally agree. But you can't unring a bell. And the chief said we might have misspoke. He said there was even a miscommunication between their office and the office of the DA. He said we didn't say that anyone in the house was a target. We didn't say that. We said the house itself could be a target. And I personally don't care what they do with the house. I don't expect them to take any jurors, real estate agents, future tenants into that house with blood-stained spatter. Of course you wouldn't do that. That's crazy. Remember the case, the Roden family. The Wagner family wiped out an entire generation. That's that's good. I can't even imagine what they came across. Oh my God. But I think it's a stigma thing, and that's why they want it torn down. Now, he is telling the families he's given them till April 3rd of this year. April 3rd of this year to come back with any concerns. Let's just wait to see what happens with Bushy's attorney. She might be like, okay, so now what do we do if the jurors want to see the house? What do I do? Because it doesn't do it justice when you show people things on a computer. Sorry, it just doesn't. It's totally different when you see something physically for yourself. Totally different. So we'll see what they do. Mostly, I'm curious as to what Steve Goncalves is going to say. Recently, on their family page on Facebook, Steve, and I shared this on the members tab to ask you guys what you thought about it. Steve, this was posted. I don't know if it was by Steve, by his wife, I don't know. We created a second means of communication for those who want to tip in who may not have Facebook social media. So if you want to send a tip and you don't have Facebook, you can go to this website, goncalvesfamilytips.com. You can send tips to this website through anonymous tips to this website. Okay. Now, this definitely stirred up the hornet's nest. If he is trying to get tips, I can't imagine. I can't imagine this. And they're going to go to his private investigator, I guess, and his attorney. He's still thinking there's something out there. You would think he would say, no, you're not tearing down the house. I don't think the investigation is over. Jules said, what tips? I don't know. I don't know. This is a hot topic for a lot of people because if you talk too much about it, they think you're picking on a family that's obviously has a lot going on. I do hope that this tip line that has been set up by Kaylee's family has been discussed with law enforcement. I do hope this tip line has been discussed with Ethan's family, Xana's family, Madison's family, because we have more than one victim in this horrific situation. Now, I did see some comments. People said, well, if it wasn't for Kaylee's family, They're the ones that solved the timeline. They're the ones that gave over Kaylee's phone and all this. Look, the other families cooperated too. You think Ethan's family didn't cooperate with investigators and tell them everything they know about their son, who he hangs out with, who he communicates with? Let them get his phone or whatever. You think Madison's family didn't cooperate? You think Xana's family didn't tell the authorities everything that they know? Of course they did. They just didn't go on Inside Edition and tell us about it. Of course they did. So on one hand, Steve is collecting more tips. But on the other hand, we're going to tear down a crime scene. So I'm most curious as between now and April 3rd, what's going to go down. I don't know. I don't know how I would feel, obviously. I don't want to be in this situation. Of course, I'd want my children's personal belongings. Of course. Oksana said, pretty backwards. It is pretty backwards. It definitely is pretty backwards. And to those that say Steve solved the case, let me tell you, and this is not a slight against Steve. I'm not picking on Steve. I'm not doing that. But when he was going on Fox News, CNN, News Nation, the name Brian Kohlberger never came up. Pullman University or Washington University never came up. Pullman, Washington never came up. So if he thinks that Bushy is not the guy, I don't know. I don't think this is the way to do it. I just don't think this is the way to do it. But that's just my opinion. All right, so let's look at what they say is, more about the demolition and family concerns. Now, the families aren't on this clip, so I don't know if Beigefield is reading minds. I don't know where the hell she's getting this, but I'm here for it.
Sad moment. I'm going to play this for you, but I want you to just know what's happening outside the purview of the camera. The media stayed a long way back on the other side of the road to shoot this, but nobody spoke. The media didn't speak. No one asked questions. The officers who were bringing those items out to load up the U-Haul truck, it was dead silent. It was so solemn. So I'm going to run that moment for you, but just know that we are running it with the existing natural sound. It's just that it was so quiet in observation. Take a look. That was a day that was observed by our senior national correspondent, Brian Enton, who was among the media representatives, staying across the street and watching, observing, but out of respect, staying quiet. Brian, that was such a difficult time. I had thought that all the items were brought out of the house, and here we learn that there are still more. Do you have any idea how they'll set up this next transfer of property?
Yeah, it was very, very sad, Ashley, just because we had been so into the investigation of the case at that point, and it was just a very human moment then seeing the victim's items brought out. But you'll notice the U-Haul truck, which the police chief was driving, by the way, and it was police officers who were working the case who were bringing the items out, so it was emotional for them too. But you'll notice that U-Haul, it wasn't a very big U-Haul, so it clearly wasn't all of the items that belonged to the kids in.
And yeah, if that wasn't a sight for sore eyes. Yeah, the chief driving off in the U-Haul, I could have died. Now, mind you, he's not an investigator. And let's face it, this case was not short of investigators. They had how many FBI agents? And still, how many Idaho state troopers, and still now they have Washington working on it, plus their own investigators at Moscow. It's not like this case wasn't heavily investigated. Mel left a comment, who the hell would want the couches and stuff? Exactly. Well, you know what? You would think no one. Call up Liberty Auctions. Look at that shit show they had last week. They sold all the Murdaugh stuff. Hell, they were selling couches, a leather couch that probably isn't even, I couldn't tell you what it's worth. I'm not an appraiser, for $31,000. They had very trying to find a nice way to phrase this. They had very slender looking back massagers, a whole TV tray full of them. People pay big money for that stuff. Big money. And if they could find something that was personalized, it went for, bukus. Bukus of money. That dartboard that just said Buster on it, it's like freaking $800,000, something like that. Yeah. Call them. If you're worried about what to do with the couches and everything.
Inside the house. It was just some of them, which explains why there are more items in the house and why likely the families are going to want to retrieve some more of those items. So, couches, we did see the mattresses come out at one point, but couches, other pieces of furniture, all sorts of stuff. Again, you see how small that U-Haul was. You can just imagine all the other items that are still left behind there.
So, Brian, on December 30th, that was the day that Brian Koberger was arrested. Within hours of his arrest, his public defender, Ann Taylor, put out a request to stop all remediation, all cleaning. And at that time, I remember us seeing these privacy curtains going up, and it looked as though they were going to empty out, big items, and then that immediately stopped. But there were big items that were still unloaded. What was the progression of that? And what happened with whatever was taken out of the house after the video we just showed?
Yeah, so there was that initial time where you just saw where the chief of police backed the U-Haul in and they took out a number of the personal items and then returned those to the families. Then there was another time that they went to the house and started removing other items. The mattresses were really the most visual thing that we could see. They were putting them in the back of pickup trucks. They were really starting to clear out the house, or at least start the process to do that. And that is when they immediately halted it. The public defender asked for it all to be stopped, which is really, really interesting because they were in the middle of doing it and they just shut the whole thing down. Exactly what was going on behind the scenes was still sort of unclear. It appears perhaps the public defender wanted an opportunity to really look through the house before things were moved around too much. But all of that stuff before they could get it out was left inside, which again explains why they now have to go through this process now and remove all the additional items from the house.
Can understand that. I want to end our discussion just with an answer that the university gave us when we asked if this is officially no longer a crime scene, because we have not had that announcement made by the police that it was it a crime scene and has the title transferred. And they kind of gave us a half answer, Brian. Do you have the letter in front of you, the executive director of communications?
Yeah, I have the quote here. And essentially they said that it is no longer a crime scene, but basically said the house has been fully transferred.
Thank you for watching.
Okay, well, it cut him off and it says the house has been fully transferred. We'll see, because Ann Taylor, she can't not say anything because she has to defend her client. She can't be like, well, I haven't been watching the news. I didn't know they were going to tear it down or anything like that. She can't do that. It's boarded up. It's a secure location. And even when they make this reflection park or whatever, it still has that sight for sore eyes apartment right next to it. How tranquil is this going to be? I mean, come on. We know what this is about. This is my opinion. This is about the university. Why are they all over this? Why are they taking the reins and not the police? Shouldn't the police be telling the families, this is no longer a crime scene? We've got all the evidence we need. So The university would like to tear it down because it is a reminder. It is a reminder. And we see no problem with that. Of course, Ann Taylor, she would be crazy if she weighed in on that. Because this is a feather in her cap. She can use this to her advantage either way. Either way, she can use this to her advantage. This is by far not near the worst crime scene in America. It's just not. It's not. There's many, many, many others. Sadly, it's sad to say, but it's the truth. All right, the most logical theory that I've seen come out of News Nation in a long time actually makes sense to me is saying that they believe, now they, of course, is Beigefield's secret sources, that they believed his intention was just one victim. Now, why he chose to go into this odd house, odd layout with other people there. It wasn't just Madison there. Madison obviously was there. Kaylee obviously was there. Ethan obviously was there. Xana obviously was there. Dylan, Bethany was on the ground floor. So why he decided to attack when the house was full of people? Some people say he was just going to scare her with the knife. And I'm like, what? Where'd you get that? Have you talked to him? Have you talked to him? Court case said, I still wish they hadn't cleaned it and left it as is for the jury. Well, that's kind of nasty. You're definitely going to want to clean it. But if the defense is, this is an odd layout, he wouldn't have known his way around the house. You can't prove that unless they go to it. You can't prove it unless they go to it. You know, have you guys, I mean, you see like on Zillow and these different sites and you take a tour of the house and you're like, oh, I like that house. Then you go see it in person and it's not the same thing that you saw on the screen. So if that's the defense, that defense will be dead in the water. But I agree with this theory. I don't know why. I could change my mind tomorrow. But look at this with me and tell me what you think. Don't forget that the link is pinned.
Well, accused University of Idaho murderer Brian Kohberger's quadruple homicide case captivated the nation, certainly, after University of Idaho students Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were found dead in their apartment last November. Now, internet sleuths tried to put the pieces together as PhD criminology student Kohberger managed to evade police for 7 weeks before he was eventually apprehended, eventually caught. Well, now some believe that he never intended to kill all 4 of those students, that there may have only been one victim he was originally targeting. One of these people, journalist Caitlin Becker, who joins us live tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Okay, before journalist Caitlin Becker gets to it, what do you guys think of this theory? He had no intention of 4 victims, only one. Now, had we had this conversation back in November, we would have said, no, that's crazy. That's crazy. At that time, we were thinking it was like a Ted Bundy type of deal. I think it makes sense. For some reason, the more I've been going through this the last month, I guess, I think his target was 100% Maddie.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So, Caitlin, out of all 4 victims, who do you believe Kohberger actually intended to harm that night?
My gut tells me that it is Kaylee, but my investigation as a journalist and as a reporter who has been digging into this for months now tells me it is either Kaylee or Maddie. The evidence doesn't really narrow it down to one of them. but my gut says Kaylee, but I do believe that all of the evidence points to one of the victims in the upstairs bedroom was the initial target, and that there was only one victim targeted. Unfortunately, that means the 3 other victims were just collateral damage.
And what explains that to you? What evidence particularly is leading you down that road? I know that we were speaking with former CIA officer and FBI Special Agent Tracy Walder about this months ago, and she also believed that the concept of overkill, that there was one person in particular who really received the brunt of the violence and was stabbed over and over and over again, also led her to potentially that conclusion. What are you tracking at this time?
And to kind of piggyback off of that one victim we know from Kaylee's family was Kaylee. Kaylee's father, Steve Gonsalves, has said that Kaylee's wounds were significantly more brutal than any of the other victims, even Maddie Mogen, who died in the same bed next to her. We also know that the knife sheath was dropped next to Maddie's body, which leads me to believe that the killings started upstairs in that 3rd floor bedroom. We also know that Xana Kernodle was awake at the time of the killing. She was on TikTok just moments before being stabbed. And we also have to add that with the eyewitness testimony that we get from the surviving roommate. The surviving roommate, who was sleeping on the 2nd floor, recalls hearing the killer come into the house and be on the 3rd floor first, putting a...
Okay, I'm glad that the journalist researcher is bringing up the probable cause that we've only read 50 times. Yes, he went to the 3rd floor first. He went to Madison's room first. I have to address this comment by Pam because it is 100% spot on. She said, doesn't matter because there were 4 victims. But she says, I believe Maddie was the target. I believe Maddie was the target too. I believe that just like Dylan was awoken, I believe that Kaylee woke up and went to check on her friend. Kaylee's in the way. Kaylee wasn't asleep and unsuspecting. So, of course, Kaylee's going to have more wounds. Then you go down the stairs, and just like Dylan was awoken, just like Dylan could hear things, Ethan and Xana have ears too, and they're wondering what the hell's going on. Now, I'm not saying I want anything to happen to Dylan. I'm not saying I'm bummed out that Dylan's alive. I'm not saying I'm bummed out Bethany's alive. It just tells me that those 2 didn't confront him. Had they confronted him, I believe there would be more victims. Peas in a pod said his target was upstairs. He had to go upstairs. Yeah. That's... And I mean, at the end of it, I don't know. I mean, in Idaho, do they have to show a motive? Will they have to spell this out for the jury and say he was obsessed with Madison? He had been following her on Instagram. He ate at the Mad Greek. I'm just paraphrasing, like if that's what they have to have. And then from there, like we were talking, Kaylee woke up. She was also on the 3rd floor. She confronted him. He went down the stairs. Ethan and Xana were checking it out. He didn't see Dylan. He didn't see Bethany. Thank God. And he got the hell out of Dodge. And both Maddie and Xana worked at the Mad Greek, but he went to floor 3 first. It's going to be insane when it all comes out. It really is.
Essentially putting Kaylee's dog in one of the bedrooms, then going to that upstairs bedroom, and then filtering out through Xana and Ethan. And if Xana was awake and came across the killer, it stands to reason that the killer likely had to kill Xana because they felt that they had to clean up a loose end, and Ethan was in the same bedroom.
And, it seems as this case comes together that prosecutors will try to make the case that this was a well thought out plan for Kohberger, that there is evidence he visited that campus, that he stalked the victims, he followed their moves on social media. What do you think actually happened in that house for him to end up killing 4 victims instead of 1?
My for everything that I know, as you mentioned, all of those things that the police believe have been pretty much laid out. They have his cell phone and his car circling by that house 12 times, beginning as early as late June. So there's all of this evidence that he had been there multiple times. There are also sources saying that he had followed all three of the victims on social media, but only repeatedly messaged one of them. Another source said that he was found with images of just one of the victims, which again goes back to my theory that there was likely an alleged obsession with Brian Koberger and one of the girls in the house. It's my belief that it was Kaylee, and that the issue was he had planned to allegedly go in this house and kill Kaylee, but probably expected Kaylee to be in her bedroom. But at the time, she had already moved out and was sleeping in the same bed as Maddie. So this is allegedly all planned out. The suspect enters the home thinking that they're going to go into one room, ended up having to go into a second room, finding two girls instead of one. And that is, I think, where the dominoes started to fall and how we ended up with such mass casualties.
All right, Caitlin Becker, I certainly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Okay, possibly. I don't know why everyone, I shouldn't say everyone because it's certainly not everyone and I should never generalize. They always say it's Kaylee, 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 Kaylee. Why wouldn't it be Madison? He went straight to Madison's room. He did not go to Kaylee's room. If he's been planning this, and it's all going to come down to whose picture did he have in his phone? Multiple images. Who was it? He'd been casing the place, supposedly. So if he had been doing that, then he would know whose room is whose. So why did he go to Madison's room first? Why didn't he go to Kaylee's room first? That doesn't make any sense. Grandma Bunny said, who actually stated in LE that someone actually said the target? 0 people in LE. Exactly. They said the house could be the obsession. They said there was a miscommunication between their office and the district attorney. Now, the mayor came right out of the chute and said it was a crime of passion. Crime of passion. And it's like, do what? Huh? Then they said it's isolated and targeted. It wasn't a random act of violence. It was isolated and targeted. Then they said, the chief said, we never said that one person in that house was the target. It could be the house itself. Now, as things have unfolded since the probable cause affidavit, we know that he did seem to have a little bit of a, I guess we could say, I'm going to say it lightly, crush on someone in the house, maybe. I mean, why else would you have a stranger's picture in your phone? That's crazy. What did Snow say? Someone said Snow said something. Said right on Snow. What did Snow say? He could have been obsessed with both of them. You don't know. Doesn't make any sense. I've never understood the obsession. The house itself could be a target. Some people have said, well, it looks like the house from Amityville. That was the anniversary of Amityville. There's this book, and some things were highlighted on page 118. We still don't know what the book is. If the book was about Amityville, then I would agree with them. Because it's going to be a long time until we have the answers. We're a long ways away from a trial, that's for sure. All we have is each other to discuss with because the police don't want to discuss it with us. So back to the house. Another thing that I've seen as people are talking about demolishing the house is what did come from law enforcement when, and of course this raises a lot of eyebrows, as we know before 911 was called, basically all of Greek Row was informed something wasn't right. Something was amiss at the house. And many friends, and this is from law enforcement, they didn't even have a solid count at the time of this clip. many friends were called over. Well, many friends is many people at a fresh crime scene. That could be a problem. Let's listen to what the chief said. Mainly if you look at his face, because he looks a little amazed when they ask how many friends.
So will you clarify that for me?
You're not confirming a roommate called 911, but if you use the roommate's phone, so was there someone else at the home other than those roommates?
There was other friends that had arrived at the location.
How many? Everybody get the call.
Honestly, I'm not quite sure at this time, to be quite honest.
Do you guys have any idea if
The look on his face. How many friends were called over? How many friends were there? His eyes get big. He goes, honestly, I'm not sure. A damn lot. You know, there was a lot of kids that showed up. It's already known to be a party house, such a party house that they had noise complaints. That house was a petri dish of DNA. Who knows how many profiles you had in that house? Of course, that's going to come up. Then you have a horrific crime scene. We don't call 911, we call the friends over. But now we're going to demolish the house, so whatever question we may or may not have, we can't get to. And it's not up to me to say they've got everything, because I haven't read any article where the police are like, not a problem, we have everything. They're just going to leave it all up in the air. Fine by me. Not my, whatever they want to do. They obviously higher pay grade than me. Hello, RJ. How are you? I caught your show last night. That was great. So to me, it's a little concerning. Also, they keep on and they keep on and they keep on and they keep on about this damn firing squad. No one has said that they are going to be seeking the death penalty. And the more they keep talking about it, the more they're not going to. So if we already know where Kaylee's family stands, they want the death penalty. We have not heard from Ethan's family. We have not heard from Xana's family. We have not heard from Madison's family if that's what they want. Now, truth be known, what the victims' families want isn't always what they get. That being said, it was said early on by the district attorney that the more pre-trial publicity, they're going to lock it down. They're not going to let anything new out. We have to wait till June for actual real facts and evidence. This is what he said about pre-trial publicity.
Case now in court, and I and my office and the investigators have to live with the restrictions that our Supreme Court places on pretrial publicity. That said, I promise you we will share with you through the court process or otherwise whatever we are allowed to. I just appreciate your patience on that. The factual basis for the charges are summarized in what's called a probable cause affidavit that is on file with the court. According to the rules of the Idaho Supreme Court, that is sealed until Mr. Kohlberger is physically back in Latah County and has been served with the Idaho arrest warrant. At that time, we expect that affidavit will be available to you so you can share the true facts with all of your readers and your watchers and your listeners.
With your readers and your listeners, saying we're going to keep everything locked down. Grandma Bunny says they keep hiring DP lawyers, though. Yeah. You got Ann Taylor. She was put on there because she's qualified to defend a death penalty case. Then they got another lawyer. What I'm saying is the state has not answered if that's what they're going to be seeking. And the more they keep talking about it, they may not. They might say, look, may not be able to. I don't know. In my book, this DA can do nothing wrong. I love that DA. I don't know. There's just, maybe it's the beard. I don't know. So let's look at this. They're not only just talking about the firing squad. That's the talk of the town for damn sure. But what slips a lot of our minds, because it hasn't been reminded to us recently, but I can't wait to hear about it. What are they going to find in the car? The car was the talk. The car got everybody hopping. They pretty much already knew who owned that car, but they put it out for the public. They threw the bait out. And that's all we heard about was the car. The car. We're looking for whoever was driving this car. We're looking for whoever was driving this car. Reading the probable cause affidavit, we know now they pretty much already knew. Now, how are you going to get around that when they disassemble that car piece by piece, and that's how they do it, and you find any shred of evidence in that car? Blood, mainly. Rock and Rolla said if he was as bloody as he should have been, they'll find blood in the car. Yep. There's not going to be any getting around that.
Now, details from the case are still emerging at this point, with experts describing Kohberger's white Elantra as a rolling crime scene. Some of the evidence police seized, including a knife sheath left behind at the victim's home, could be the key to a potential conviction. And that home near University of Idaho set to be demolished. And the victim's parents, raising concerns now that the jury will not be able to visit that crime scene in person during this trial. News Nation was exclusively able to obtain a letter the university sent to the victims' families asking them to retrieve their deceased children's belongings. Joining us now to discuss the Kohberger trial, former CIA officer and FBI Special Agent Tracy Walder. Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
So, Tracy, let's start with Idaho's governor allowing firing squad executions, only the 5th state to allow firing squads for death row inmates. There are special circumstances that have to be met, right? And how likely is it that Kohberger could actually face this?
So that's an interesting question. As you mentioned, there's only 5 states really now that would have that as an option. And really what I think we need to remember is that is in response to the fact that the drug that is used for lethal injection has become scarce. And there have been issues with the administration of it, resulting in people not passing away right away, having these kind of torturous deaths, which really is a violation of their constitutional rights. And so that is why they added this other option. There's been a little confusion as to, was this added because of Kohberger? No, it was not. It's really in response to this shortage of the lethal injection drug. Look, if he gets the death penalty, is this on the table? Absolutely. But we would need to look at what the supply of the lethal injection drug is, because it wouldn't be administered as a choice to him. It's an if this is not allowed thing for him.
Okay, understood. And help us understand what experts mean describing Kohberger's white Elantra as a rolling crime scene.
So, I've always felt that the car was the key to this case. And I've said that really all along. I figured once they found the car, it would really lead them to the suspect. The car, they did say in that warrant that became unsealed that the car really had been disassembled completely by law enforcement. And I really do think we have to remember when he got done, allegedly committing these crimes, he got back into that vehicle. He had to have been bathed in some kind of biological evidence, microscopic biological evidence. And I do think that that evidence was still kind of hanging out in the nooks and crannies of his car, to the point that he would have had to have taken it apart himself in order to make all of that biological evidence go away. And so I really do think that is what is going to be the most damaging and the largest amount of ammunition that the prosecution has in this case.
And we did see it was potentially significant in the Murdaugh trial when the jury was able to visit the site of the crime in person. Do you think that in this case, the victim's parents are rightly concerned that a jury will not have the option to do that if the house is demolished?
I can understand their perspective. I think in the Murdaugh trial, like you mentioned, look, that was a large property and large distances that they were talking about, and that was helpful to the jury to go there and be able to see that. I think in this case, one of the things that the parents of the victims might be thinking about is kind of that time, understanding how quickly he made it from the from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor and then out of the house, really without being noticed or confronted. And I do think that it's going to be difficult with, I know, the 3D modeling that was done of the house to really pinpoint that time. And so I can understand where they're coming from. However, I do think think that the 3D models are going to provide an excellent representation to the jury of the crime scene.
All right, really appreciate that, Tracy. And we are learning a little bit more from a source here at News Nation about Kohberger's actual experience as he's being held at this point, being considered a maximum security inmate. We know that he is allowed to take phone calls in jail and that he's allowed to have headphones for privacy so that investigators cannot listen in to his calls. Does that detail surprise you at all?
Yes and no. So we have to remember he's being held at a jail, not a prison, right? Because he is awaiting his arraignment and trial. And so I think we have to remember the confines of this facility. It's not set up necessarily for the privacy that he is entitled under the law, that attorney-client privilege privacy. And so while it makes me uncomfortable, I'm not sure that there was another option that they had in terms of keeping these conversations private.
Okay, I really appreciate that detail. And I know several of our viewers were posting that question online. So thank you. Tracy Walder, appreciate your time as always.
Woo! She gives old Coffin Daffer a run for her money. Notice who is put on News Nation a lot more. A lot more. Hang on. Bella said, correct. I have never heard such a thing until this case. Yeah, I don't understand the whole shortage of drugs. Hey, look, I don't care how they do it. I really don't. I mean, I know in Oklahoma we execute an inmate every month, basically. So they obviously have something that they're putting them down with. Yeah, it's crazy. So in a case like this, when the families are concerned and they heard about the Murdaugh trial, just like everybody else, and they're like, so what if the jury wants to see the house? I do not blame the families for being concerned at all. Now, for Casey on News Nation to say, I think the 3D models will do just fine, maybe not. We could get to the appeals process. They could cite the Murdaugh trial, which didn't work out good for Alec, but still, they could say they never had the opportunity to see the house. They never got an opportunity to. The house is not empty. To actually visualize the layout of the house. So, I don't know. I would, and like I said, in these cases, the families don't get to call the shots. I know that upsets a lot of people and they should have a say. Rock and Rolla said, Ann Taylor knows that and will use it. That's why I think she's being so quiet about this. She's probably like, yeah, tear it down. It only helps old Bushy here. It only helps him. Nani said 3D model won't allow for jurors to know how sound traveled in that house. I thought about that too. I know people say, oh, well, it's different without furniture in it. They're going to make sure there's furniture in it. They're going to make sure. Hang on, I missed a comment. I apologize. People are talking about the DoorDash driver, the probable cause affidavit. I need to pull it up. I've got it bookmarked here when I do my deep dives. Said that they had made contact with the DoorDash driver. And I know it's been speculated for months now that Brian could be the DoorDash driver. They said they made contact with him. That's all I know. But wouldn't that be quite a twist? Who knows? I don't think so, but I know some people are running with it. But I don't know. As of today, that's all I got, though, guys. I do have the link pinned. If anybody wants to grab it and come up here and chat with me about this, you absolutely can. Grandma Bunny said, whom has said it will go down by trial? The university has made it clear that this is going to be happening soon. As far as biohazard, no way. They would have a cleaning crew come through. There's companies and all they do is clean up biohazard. Matter of fact, like when you go to buy a house, they have to disclose to you if there's been, well, anything like this that's happened at the house, because you want to make sure it's all cleaned up. I wouldn't think that anybody would expect the jurors to go through there and see blood splatters and blood all over the floor months later. No way. No way. But what we're talking about is the layout of the house, and it is common, super common that jurors see the crime scene. Now, they're not going to see the blood and guts. God, no. Let's see what Trevor's thinking. Hello, Trevor. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good. How's it going, my friend?
Doing well.
I heard you on RJ's show last night. Great job, you two.
Thank you. Always love watching his shows. I was glad to be able to go up.
So what are you thinking? Let's cut to the chase. Do you think the house should be torn down before the end of the trial, or should the jurors have an option to go through it if they want to?
Well, I was kind of looking. I was thinking about that I look at it from both perspectives of like it's probably become I'd say tourist in quotation marks, but a place where people are often driving by, stopping and looking at. And I just wonder if that has led them to want to just, do away with it and have it not be because it's just going to be a sore there. It's going to be sitting there and it's not going to be somewhere people are going to go live. They're going to come by and, stop by, take pictures, go up and try to peek in and whatever else. So, but at the same time, would it affect, them going to visit it? And I've looked that up and see some places say that it's kind of rare for jurors to visit the crime scene. But I know recently, we had in the Murdaugh trial, they did get to go visit the Moselle property.
Lord, I can't, of course, this is before your time. I couldn't believe when they took the O.J. Simpson jurors around. When they took O.J. Simpson's jurors to his house, I thought they were going to move in. Hell, they were there forever and a day. I didn't think they were ever going to get out of there. But if they don't think that the jurors are going to want to see it, now mind you, we're nowhere near picking a jury, but if they already have that much foresight that they don't think that they're going to want to see it, and they think that their Lego set, their 3D model is going to do it justice, that's on them. But his defense attorney might come back later and say they never had a chance to see it. And this trial is years away. We're just getting to the pre-trial in June.
Right.
They're still investigating. I mean, my God, what Letitia, it took like 3 years to get her to trial. Look in Idaho with the Daybell Vallow case. They're just getting to trial.
Well, look at Boswell. Megan, she'll be in trial 2025.
Yeah.
And we know how long that's been. So, it takes a while. And the bigger the case, like this one, it's just going to go farther because there's so much extra to it. You're going to have all these, there was 4 people killed. You're going to have all these extra hearings. There's a lot of housekeeping before you can get to a trial.
You got that right. So now what do you think? Let me ask this, and I'm asking everybody in the chat too. I know a lot of people are saying cover up, and stuff like that. Some people think that. Some people just don't think that Bushy would have it in him to commit such a heinous crime. I see that he might have a little bit of rage going on under there. How do you get around it? Mind you, you're not a defense attorney, neither am I. How do you explain it when they take that car apart piece by piece and either one, find blood from Ethan, Xana, Madison, Kaylee, all 4, just one, or they find nothing? Could you imagine if when the FBI or whoever's doing it goes through that car piece by piece and they report back, I'm sure by now they have a really good idea because it's been going on more than a minute, and they say, there's nothing in the car. There's nothing. There's not even a dog hair. There's nothing. Everything in here is from him. How would you explain? You can't explain away their blood being in his car.
No, I agree. I think if they find that, it's a done deal from that end. I don't think there's some things certain circumstantial evidence you can try to argue, but stuff that's like concrete like that, you can't, in my opinion.
Yeah, Exactly.
You can justify a phone ping or a saying things of that sort. I was in the area. I often visited that he was in the area. He often visited that house, X, Y, and Z. But when you have something that's concrete like blood or DNA, it's like, how do you justify that?
You can't get around that. No
No.
way. And with all the talk and the secret sources, nobody has come out and said that any of them, Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, Madison, ever mentioned him before. No one. No one has ever said they knew that Dylan hung out with him. No one. So, that being said, how you can't explain that away.
No, and he strikes me as someone that you would remember hanging out with or being around. Like, I don't see him as, just a casual party goer or, somebody that they hung out with that they wouldn't remember. The way he, I don't know, just his whole personality makes me think that he would be, somebody who you'd remember in a social setting.
He would stick out like a sore damn thumb. Not
Mhm.
to mention he's older than all of them. He's got almost 10 years on them. Big difference in college between a PhD student and a freshman, sophomore, junior.
Yeah.
Big time difference.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid case that they made. And I think they're going to have what they need. I mean, when you look at like the FBI was on it as much and they waited because, for a while we all believed they had nothing. Like, they kept it all quiet and they said they had nothing. They were still looking, and then they watch him for a little while, and then boom, here he is being flown back across the country.
Mm-hmm. And that was nuts in itself.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then you read the probable cause affidavit, which I think a few people might need to read back through it because it's very detailed and it's their weakest evidence.
Mm-hmm.
It is their weakest evidence. There's more to come.
Yeah,
There
because
is more to come.
that's the thing is they have evidence for you. You have to have you bring about a certain amount of evidence for an arrest, but that's a lot easier than your evidence for a prosecution. Because when you bring about to a grand jury, we're bringing X, Y, and Z for charges here because of this. You just have to bring enough to say that you're going to arrest him. You don't have to sit there and have his defense up there arguing why that's not the case. You go to a grand jury and say we're going to put these charges, and you get them. So that's just, I mean, easy evidence at that point just to make an arrest, and then you use the rest of your evidence to go through a prosecution.
Right. And I mean, if I was a juror and they said, yeah, all four of them, their blood was in his car, even though you're not supposed to make your mind up that early in the game, that'd be the nail in the coffin for me. But now
Yeah.
for him, for the appeals, like they say in the Murdaugh trial, down the road, they could easily say they never had the opportunity to see that he couldn't have possibly done this because they couldn't see the house. They could not go through the house. Just me, I wouldn't want to go anywhere near it. I can't
No.
believe, I mean, I do believe these people because I know how they are. When you go through Moscow, Idaho, from what I'm understanding, a lot of tourists all of a sudden want to go to the Mad Greek, stand outside, take pictures of themselves outside of it, and of course, they go by the house. I'm sure it is a big, huge distraction in that town, and the university has to protect themselves. I don't blame them for that at all. I don't blame them for that at all. And if I was one of the parents, I would have my concerns, and I think they have every right to be concerned.
Absolutely. And, I know earlier on they actually held off the crime scene from even being cleaned up, right? Because his attorney went in and brought the crime scene, I'd say reenactment, that's probably not the word, but, the team to come through and go back through the crime scene and go through that night.
Yeah, she halted that
Yeah.
because when asked why did the crime scene cleanup stop? Why did it stop? And they said that was a court order. They had a court order to stop it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's not going to get torn down tomorrow. It's not going to get torn down next week. It'll probably still be standing at 4th of July. But the university wants it down sooner than later.
Right.
And they even said, whatever questions and concerns you may have, address it with us by April 3rd. See, so they're giving a date. That doesn't mean it's going to get torn down on April 4th, but you can tell they have somewhat of a timeline going. I wouldn't be surprised if that timeline isn't for when the students arrive in the fall.
Yeah, I'd say so. Because you're going to have a lot of people there too. You're going to have obviously all the students coming in, but you're also going to have a lot of people there that aren't students. You know, you'll have family, friends that bring their kids, their friends to school. Parents come drop them off or help them move in, whatever. And you have that, and you're just having so many extra people there that to get rid of that big distraction at this point would probably be what they would want to do. And honestly, trial is going to be so far away that if you choose to leave it up for trial, you're going to be leaving it up for a long time.
It's going to be up for a long time. And also, it attracts strangers and it attracts freaking weirdos. I'm sorry to say it. It attracts people that are not right in the freaking head.
No, I mean, true crime has brought those people out. I mean, we see it in all these cases. We talk about that. I mean, you have these nut people that are nuts, and they come through, and they just have to have that video standing outside night outside that house, or they have to get as close as they can to us so they can make their video or make their post or draw their crazy theory. And they're nuts. Like, you don't want those kind of people just running around your town, running around your school, when you've got students to protect and businesses to run and housing to run. I mean, you're going to have other housing where students are going to stay. You want to keep them safe as well.
Yeah, it really is a two-folded problem because you have to, well, for one, you have a huge trial that's going to be coming down the pike. And it might be that the jurors want to see the house for themselves. If you take that away from them, that could lead to an appeal for him later down the road if found guilty. Then you have you owe it to your students at the university as much protection as you can possibly give them, and that house is a magnet for freaking weirdos.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if the prosecution, I would hope at least that the prosecution looked at it and decided that it's worth not fighting to keep, because if they were worried that it would ruin their case as far as an appeal, I wonder if they would have fought it as well and said, can we please, keep it, because they're going to probably want to come see it. Because I wonder if anybody, held a fight to this, or if it was just, I mean, from the legal perspective, I mean, not the public, but like from the court, or if they just, were like, it's probably a good idea, let it go.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I see it on both sides. I see both sides of the argument. I see it for the defense. I see it for the prosecution. If I was a juror, I would be like, hey, you know what? I played with Lincoln Logs when I was a little kid. Thank you for rebuilding that for me. But I damn sure know that if I walked in that house right now, I would not be seeing that model. Okay. I've been on the planet a little longer than a minute. So showing me something on the computer screen and showing me your 3D model, no, I would just put that out of sight, out of mind. That's just me, though.
I agree. And I don't think that's going to be, hopefully that doesn't have to be a big part of their case. Hopefully there's enough outside of that it's a piece of it, but not the piece that they need the jurors to be convinced on. Because if so, that's going to be a problem. Because personally, I agree, as a juror, I would have trouble having to look at that and convince myself of a conviction. But hopefully they have enough outside of that, like we said, if there's blood in the car, things like that, that they can make a solid case off of regardless.
Yeah, because there's no getting around that.
No.
And we don't know if they came up with anything or not. I'm sure by now they have. But yeah, that's going to be one that you're not going to run that elephant out of the room. No way. You won't be able to explain that away. And you can't get up there and play conspiracy theory either and say, oh, I bet all the police decided to gang up on Bushy and go all the way to Pennsylvania and plant that in his car. No,
Yeah,
that's not going to work either.
The FBI just decided that's what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm sure people will say it, so.
Of course they will. All right, my friend. Well, I appreciate you coming up. And for now, that's all I've got. But I'm going to keep watching this just like everybody else because I'm really curious as to what's going to happen with this house situation. I think when it comes right down to it, nobody's going to have a say. I think the attorneys are going to sit back and just let the chips fall where they may.
I agree.
And as far as the families, I feel bad for them. And they definitely have to be catered to, but we've seen in many, many, many other cases, they don't get their way.
No.
It comes right down to what they can prove and what they can get over on a jury. That's what happens. All right, my friend, thank you for coming up. As always, I love talking with you.
Always. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Let's have a big round of applause for our friend Trevor. He's got his own channel too, where he covers summer wells. He's got another case he's been talking about recently. Trev Time is what it's called. And he does great work over there. All right, guys, that's all I've got for today. Thank you for coming in here on a Monday morning. If you're like me, I hate Mondays. Now, this morning I posted a video about a case not too far from me. A guy left his house after arguing with his girlfriend on Saturday. He did not take his phone. He did not take his wallet. And he's gone. They found his car, but not him. Also, check out the backup channel because we're going to be having a live later in the week to discuss these horrific storms that ravaged Mississippi. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being super cool and bringing your awesome comments to the table. If I don't see you around later this afternoon, I'll see you back here tomorrow morning. You guys are the best. Have a great one.